Defining the term self is difficult. Self does refer to an empirical reality, but its exact nature is impossible for the ego to describe. All that can be done is to approach it from various angles and get little pieces of its meaning. One definition of the self is that it is the totality of the psyche, which manifests itself as a unitary entity. It can also be said that the self is the psyche in its wholeness, which includes both the ego and the totality of the unconscious. A third formulation is that the self is both the center and circumference of the psyche, corresponding to the old definition of God as a circle whose center is everywhere and whose circumference is nowhere. There is a logical problem in all of this, because when the self is defined as the totality of the psyche, the totality includes the ego. How can the ego, a mere part of the whole, stand separate and speak of the totality as though it were something separate from itself? This paradox is built into the human psyche and into the phenomenon of consciousness. It is as though the ego as the son takes over some of the qualities of the self as the father and presumes to be a separate entity even while it is still part of the whole. Empirically, the psyche has two centers, the ego, that is the subjective center, and the self, the objective center. Considerable psychological development is necessary before a person experiences that. Jung had a clear awareness of the two centers in his youth, which he named personalities number 1 and number 2. This figure shows how the relation between the ego and the self develops in the course of unfolding consciousness. It refers to the 4 different stages of ego development, 4 ways the ego might relate to the self. In the first stage, the ego is still contained in the original unconscious self. It has not been born yet. In the second stage, it starts to peep out. Nevertheless, in spite of the fact that it has some separate existence, the ego center still remains in the self. So there is still a predominant state of ego self-identity, which means that there can be no experience such as that which Jung describes as personality number 1 and number 2. Ego and self would be felt as identical. In the third stage, the center of the ego has emerged from its containment in the self, and the ego is now in a position to experience itself as a separate center. The connection between the ego and the self becomes conscious. The ego self-axis becomes a connecting link of which one is aware. Of course, there would be no awareness of such a link until there is awareness of a duality rather than a unity. The fourth stage is a hypothetical ideal, an imaginary state with no residual ego self-identity at all. To the extent that the ego is identified with the self, which is the state of the vast majority of humanity, unconscious assumptions prevail that the ego carries the qualities of the self, that the ego is immortal, that it is the center of the world, and that its desires have the imperative of deity. This is not thought consciously, of course. Consciously, one can be quite civilized and apparently humble, yet still have quite different underlying unconscious assumptions, which come into view under special circumstances. This figure presents a schema for the way development proceeds from stages 1 to 4. It represents a sequence of events which occur when one acts out the unconscious ego self-identity. As long as the identity is not acted upon, nothing happens. But if it is expressed in action, it meets a rebuff from reality. That rebuff causes a wounding and reflection, then a metanoia or change of mind which heals the wound and reconnects the ego with the self, returning it to its state of ego self-identity until the next episode. Each time that circle is made, a little bit of ego self-identity is dissolved and a little more consciousness is born. One other point prior to Jung's discussion of the self concerns the breakdown of religious projections. As long as one is contained in a particular set of religious beliefs, the dogma carries the projection of the self. If that projection breaks down, various things can happen. One can lose one's connection to the self and fall into a state of alienation and despair because life becomes meaningless. This topic is explored in depth in this video.